On the table lay a locked diary. Without hesitation, she broke the lock, just as Jenna had done before in the teacher's office 2 years ago. Inside, Jenna had written in great detail about Soljiai's father's death, along with an old missing child poster. Jenna had always been haunted by the fear that her father would abandon her. She blamed everything on her younger sister, Ujee, and felt uneasy whenever she looked into Ujee's cold, dark eyes. Ujee's expression always seemed to mock her, as if she knew everything. This obsession consumed Jenna. Being the older sister but feeling inferior to Ujee was unbearable. She desperately wanted to surpass Ujee and reclaim their father's love. One day, Dr. Taejun discovered Jenna's relationship with Professor Do-hook. Surprisingly, he didn't reprimand her. Instead, he praised her while secretly planning something sinister. He used a video of Jenna and Do-hook as blackmail, forcing the professor to steal the upcoming university entrance exam questions for Jenna. Additionally, Dr. Taejun knew that Do-hook had a missing daughter and promised to help find her. Do-hook didn't want his wife searching for Soljai anymore, though she stubbornly insisted. One night, after an argument, she stormed out of the house and accidentally ran into Jenna, dropping the missing child poster. That's how Jenna got hold of it. A flashback to the day a teacher, Kim Sun-young, was removed from the exam committee for violating confidentiality agreements. It was clear that Dr. Taejun was behind this. Her replacement was none other than Professor Do-hook. As he headed to the committee meeting, he received a message from Dr. Taejun, claiming he had found his missing daughter. Do-hook tried to leave, but the committee members stopped him. Upon arriving, Dr. Taejun sent him the intimate video with Jenna, along with a chilling message. "I'm sure your daughter wouldn't want to see this, right?" Do-hook was trapped. He had no choice but to comply. During the exam discussion, he memorized the most difficult questions. Later, in the restroom, he wrote them down on a small piece of paper, stuffed it into a plastic capsule, and swallowed it to avoid detection. But once outside, he collapsed in excruciating pain. He was rushed to Dr. Taejun's hospital, where everything had already been set up. The surgery to extract the exam questions from his stomach went as planned. The most shocking part: the assistant in the operation room was none other than Jenna's. Back in the present, Jenna's funeral was about to begin. Ujee left for the morgue, and Soljai followed. There, Soljai suddenly declared, "This isn't Jenna's body. You know that too, don't you?" She pointed to a scar on the corpse's leg and asked, "Did your sister have a scar like this?" Soljai revealed that the body belonged to the missing girl, Sojin, from their orphanage. No one had claimed her body after she died, so it ended up in Dr. Taejun's hospital. Despite knowing the truth, Ujee shoved the missing girl's body into the cremation chamber, using it as a substitute for Jenna. She reasoned, "If my father wants Jenna dead, then let him continue committing his crimes. If we ruin Jenna's funeral, he'll come up with another plan. For now, we have to keep quiet." Soljai then revealed that she had read Jenna's entire diary, which described their father's death in detail. She was determined to find evidence. Ujee reluctantly agreed to help, disguising Soljai as a medical staff member and giving her access to their father's office. Meanwhile, Ujee went to the hospital surveillance room to disable the security cameras. When a security guard entered, Ujee lied, saying, "My mom told me to turn them off so VIP guests wouldn't be seen until after my sister's funeral." With the cameras down, Soljai broke into Dr. Taejun's office. She found a remote and pressed it, revealing a transparent glass floor that overlooked a hidden room below. Suddenly, she remembered Jenna's diary. This was the room where Jenna solved the stolen exam questions while Dr. Taejun watched from above. Just then, Ujee entered the office, causing Jenna to hastily hide the papers. Ujee offered to help her sister with the answers, but Jenna was furious and kicked her out. Looking up, she saw their father watching and reminded herself not to cry. He never gave gifts to children who cried. At that moment, Soljai texted Ujee, asking if there was anything Jenna had always wanted. Ujee replied that Jenna was just like their father, always caring about anniversaries like Christmas or birthdays. Soljai scanned the shelves, which held numerous CDs arranged by date. She picked one and was horrified. It wasn't a music CD, but an X-ray film of a patient. Soljai searched for a CD from the day before last year's university entrance exam, the same day her father died. What she found shocked her: an X-ray of her father's stomach, with the plastic capsule of exam questions still inside. Horrified, she played the CD. Instead of medical information, it contained Jenna's favorite song. Sol Gi was disgusted. This was Dr. Tae-jun's twisted way of mocking the man he had killed. Overwhelmed with rage, Sol Gi grabbed a knife, ready to kill him. But just as she was about to strike, her stepmother stopped her. It turned out she had already uncovered the truth. She had grown suspicious of Jenna, who was always lurking around their house, and had found Jenna's disturbingly affectionate letters to her husband. After Do-hook's death, she had received several anonymous letters, all hinting at his mysterious demise. One letter asked, "Don't you want to know how your husband really died?" More recently, the sender revealed that Jenna was dead. Meanwhile, the stepmother warned Sol Gi not to act impulsively, as she was also gathering evidence to convict Mr. Tae-jun. She revealed that his false accusation of theft was just a tactic to force a compromise, but Sol Gi refused to yield. At the same time, Sol Gi noticed an senior from the orphanage at the scene and approached him for a conversation. She asked if he knew the person inside was Sojin and mentioned that she was aware he had paid for the missing girl's room and debts. He admitted that he was there to say his final goodbyes and suggested she try to think positively. However, in reality, he had made a deal with Dr. Tae-jun and knew the truth behind everything. Soon after, Sol Gi gave an X-ray image of her father to Choi Kyung's lawyer mother, but she dismissed it as insufficient evidence. She explained that while Sol Gi might believe it contained university exam papers, her father didn't die from the surgery to retrieve them. The defense could argue it was medical negligence due to a lack of proper communication with the family, and without security cameras in the operating room, the only way to prove foul play was for Jenna to testify, an impossible task since she was no longer alive. Later, Sol Gi's stepmother revealed that she had received letters from an anonymous sender who seemed to know about Jenna and her husband's relationship from the beginning. This person might have been inside the operating room or in the exam preparation area. Choi Kyung almost confessed to sending the letters but was stopped by his mother, who pointed out that even if they found the sender, convincing them to testify would be nearly impossible. At home, Choi Kyung reflected on his mother's indifference toward medical malpractice cases, which weren't financially profitable, yet she still pretended to be a good lawyer and mother. He then revealed a shocking truth. He had been at school the day Do-hook died, watching secretly from a classroom. He had witnessed Do-hook and Jenna together but was too afraid to speak out because people would question why he was there at that hour. He admitted he had wished for UJEE to fail miserably because, without her, he would have been the top student. During the festival, Choi Kyung had told Jenna that she knew everything and would expose the truth if Jenna didn't speak up first. However, Jenna died shortly after. Choi Kyung's mother assured her that neither Jenna's nor Do-hook's deaths had anything to do with her. She insisted that Choi Kyung wouldn't have to testify in court and forbade her from speaking to anyone about the matter. At the same time, Yer encountered the senior from the orphanage. She pulled out a USB drive containing a secret audio recording of Sol Gi and planned to use it to negotiate with Dr. Tae-jun for money. She handed the USB to the older man, instructing him to meet with Mr. Tae-jun. Shortly after, the senior from the orphanage and Dr. Tae-jun met at a designated spot. He handed over the USB and demanded that Dr. Tae-jun to keep his previous promise. Meanwhile, Sol Gi was secretly watching them from a distance. UJEE unexpectedly appeared and, fearing discovery, pulled Sol Gi into hiding. Sol Gi then revealed to UJEE that her previous statements had been lies. She had pretended to find a missing page from Jenna's diary and a recorded video from the operating room to bait Dr. Tae-jun into a trap. She had known all along that Yera was eavesdropping, so she fabricated the information. Now that Dr. Tae-jun had fallen for it, Sol Gi wanted UJEE's help in taking advantage of his vulnerability. The next day, they infiltrated Mr. Tae-jun's office. Sol Gi pretended to be searching for the alleged video, while UJEE secretly recorded her actions. UJEE also set up hidden cameras in every place her father might visit, from his office to his car. She even placed a tiny camera on her pet dog's collar. When she reviewed the footage, she overheard a conversation between her parents, revealing that Jenna was still alive and being held captive by her father. UJEE also learned that her mother planned to visit Jenna the next day. Determined to find Jenna, UJEE and Sol Gi borrowed Choi Kyung's car to secretly follow UJEE's mother. Meanwhile, in court, Mr. Tae-jun's trial was underway. Choi Kyung's mother claimed that there had been a witness with Dr. Tae-jun in the operating room on the day Do-hook died. For safety reasons, she withheld their identity. The judge accepted the new witness and temporarily adjourned the trial. However, Dr. Tae-jun remained unfazed, showing no signs of worry. Ujee's mother eventually arrived at an orphanage, leaving Ujee and Seoljai in shock. They had been tricked. Seoljai immediately informed her stepmother that she couldn't bring Jenna to court. Ujee, frustrated at having fallen for the deception, returned just in time to see the trial conclude. Due to the lack of a witness, Dr. Taejun was declared not guilty. Seoljai later confided in her stepmother, suspecting that Ujee's mother had known their plan all along. Throughout the trial, Dr. Taejun never appeared anxious, as if he was certain they could never present Jenna. Despite this, Seoljai still trusted Ujee. Meanwhile, Dr. Taejun took Ujee somewhere unfamiliar instead of home. He showed her a secretly recorded video from the hidden camera inside Seoljai's stepmother's car. In the footage, Seoljai's stepmother questioned why Jenna was in the operating room, suggesting that simply handing her the exam papers should have been enough. Just then, their car suddenly lost control and crashed into a parked vehicle. Fortunately, both survived. Ujee, watching the accident unfold via a hidden camera, was terrified. She knew the attempted assassination was orchestrated by none other than Mr. Taejun. He then asked Ujee if she wanted to know why Jenna was in the operating room that day. Taking her to a secluded house deep in the forest, he revealed Jenna, who was alive but in a mentally unstable state, unable to recognize anyone. Ujee tried to help Jenna escape, but the security alarm blared, throwing Jenna into a panic. Ujee demanded answers from her father, but he claimed innocence, saying Jenna had killed Do-hook in the operating room by injecting him with a fatal dose, believing it would earn their father's approval. Ujee refused to believe him, accusing him of lying. Dr. Taejun then suggested that if any operating room footage existed, he would gladly use it to prove his innocence. He declared he was exhausted from covering up Jenna's mistakes, just as Jenna was exhausted from the weight of her actions. So, he had helped her by erasing some of her memories. Ujee scoffed at his words and retorted, "Stop pretending you went through so much for her. The truth is, you just can't accept that you gave birth to a failure." Enraged, Dr. Taejun slammed Ujee against the wall, saying, "I did all of this for you. I don't want your sister's dirty deeds to ruin everything you've worked so hard for." Ujee responded with a mocking smile. "I'm not like Jenna," she said. "I will become the kind of daughter you can be proud of." Meanwhile, a mechanic inspecting Seoljai's stepmother's car found that the tire damage was intentional. The stepmother knew who was responsible but chose to keep it a secret. She brushed it off, saying the tires were just old and lost air over time. Knowing the car was no longer safe, she decided to get rid of it. The next day, when Ujee didn't show up for school, Seoljai grew suspicious. She asked the teacher about Ujee's absence and was told that she was sick and couldn't attend class. Feeling that something was wrong, Seoljai tried calling Ujee but got no response. She searched all their usual hangout spots but couldn't find her. Desperate, she went to Ujee's house and knocked on the door, but no one answered. She then rushed to the hospital to check if Ujee was there, but medical staff blocked her way. When she finally managed to look inside, she saw Ujee studying with a group, but everyone was acting cold and distant toward her. A little later, as Ujee was leaving, Seoljai ran to her excitedly, but Ujee coldly told her to stay away. She seemed like a completely different person. Seoljai, worried, kept asking how she was feeling, only for Ujee to sneer, "How did someone as dumb as you manage to get first place? Do you really not understand why I befriended you?" Ujee then revealed that she had known everything about Jenna from the beginning. She explained that the math problem Jenna solved the other day had appeared on the university entrance exam. Seeing Seoljai's name in Jenna's documents only confirmed that teacher Do-hook had secretly leaked the exam questions to Jenna. She continued, "Your school transfer was just the price of this deal. Do you know how happy I was when I saw my father treating you like a thorn in his side, tormenting you over and over?" Seoljai was utterly stunned. Ujee cruelly confessed that it was she, not her father, who had orchestrated everything, from selling illegal drugs to stealing teacher Do-hook's phone records. She admitted that sometimes she was scared Seoljai might find out, but luckily, she was too naive. "Anyway, thanks," Ujee smirked. "Because of you, I had a lot of fun. Your family will never be able to defeat mine, so stop looking for Jenna." Seoljai was left in shock, unable to believe what she had just heard. But she didn't know that Ujee was lying. She had said all those things to discourage Seoljai, hoping she would stop fighting back. If she continued to go against Ujee's father, she would be in grave danger.
Seolgi was in danger, and as days passed, she had to study for her final exams. However, she ran out of her medication, making it impossible to concentrate. She decided to stop relying on the medicine and face the reality of her own abilities. This made her dream of getting into medical school seem more distant. On the day of the final exam, the pressure was overwhelming, and the lack of medication made it even harder for her to focus. When the results were announced, there were surprising changes. Seolgi dropped to 20th place, Yoo Jae-yi fell to 5th, and shockingly, Choi Kyung rose to the top. Meanwhile, Yoo Jae-yi handed her father the exam rankings, apologizing for not securing first place. However, he seemed indifferent. Then, Yoo Jae-yi made an unexpected request. She wanted him to make her like her older sister, Jenna. She also asked him to obtain the most challenging university entrance exam questions for her. At home, Seolgi noticed that her stepmother had bought a new car, which made her suspicious. Her stepmother had previously been determined to sue Dr. Tae-ju, but had suddenly given up. Seolgi searched the house and found that the insurance contract was missing. Confronting her stepmother, she accused her of making a deal with Dr. Tae-ju. Her stepmother admitted she was tired and didn't want to be disappointed by Seolgi's father anymore. Seolgi believed she had only been in it for the money all along. Choi Kyung was ecstatic about achieving first place, finally surpassing Yoo Jae-yi after years of being second. Her mother took her to a temple to pray for success in the upcoming university entrance exams. But Choi Kyung wasn't superstitious. She knew exactly why she had Cho-ara. That night, Yoo Jae-yi met with the senior from the orphanage to buy performance-enhancing drugs. She casually mentioned the exam rankings, but the senior wasn't surprised to hear that Choi Kyung had reached the top. After all, she had been secretly buying those miracle pills from him. Meanwhile, Seolgi went to Jenna's memorial site, holding a rock in her hand. She smashed a glass cabinet to retrieve something, but was immediately caught by security. Dr. Tae-ju arrived soon after, and Seolgi defiantly told him to go ahead and press charges. Instead, he offered her a deal. He would get her the hardest university exam questions. However, he wasn't doing it for her. He wanted to use her to help Yoo Jae-yi. Later, Seolgi confronted Yoo Jae-yi, who had been avoiding her. She revealed that Yoo Jae-yi's father had offered her the hardest exam questions, urging Yoo Jae-yi to stop him. However, Yoo Jae-yi refused to say anything, frustrating Seolgi. In a moment of reckless defiance, Seolgi climbed onto a bridge and jumped into the water, even though she couldn't swim. Yoo Jae-yi, shocked, immediately jumped in to save her. After pulling Seolgi to shore, Yoo Jae-yi performed CPR, and Seolgi regained consciousness. She smiled, realizing she was still important to Yoo Jae-yi. She also knew that Yoo Jae-yi had deliberately sabotaged her own final exam and wanted the hardest questions as part of her plan to get revenge on her father. When confronted, Yoo Jae-yi admitted it, but questioned why Seolgi would still want to accept the exam questions. Seolgi refused to let Yoo Jae-yi destroy her life just to take down her father. She even suggested that Yoo Jae-yi continue to look down on her and use her to get the questions, because that was the only way to expose Dr. Tae-ju and get the evidence needed to bring him down. Back home, Yoo Jae-yi directly asked her father if he really intended to give Seolgi the exam questions. Without hesitation, he confirmed it, explaining that Seolgi was just a pawn, someone who would willingly accept the deal because anyone would do anything for a chance at a better future. Yoo Jae-yi demanded that he create a detailed plan and collect all the evidence, making sure that if their scheme was exposed, only Seolgi would take the fall. The next day, Seolgi met with Dr. Tae-ju, agreeing to his deal. He handed her a file containing evidence of a teacher's involvement in exam fraud, proof that he had accepted bribes. As a test of her loyalty, Dr. Tae-ju instructed her to use this information. Seolgi immediately approached the teacher and showed him the documents. Meanwhile, Dr. Tae-ju's men secretly took photos of their interaction. The teacher, shocked, asked Seolgi what she really wanted. On the other side, Choi Kyung had an interview with the university she wanted to attend. Nervous and anxious, she excused herself to the restroom, but her loud sighs of relief were overheard by people outside, making them laugh. Afterward, she rushed back to the interview room, unaware that she smelled strongly of something unpleasant, leaving the admissions officer bewildered. The next day, Seolgi distributed university application forms to her classmates. Noticing that Yoo Jae-yi wasn't in the room, she went to leave a form on her desk. That's when she saw a note from Yoo Jae-yi counting down 92 days left. However, the actual university entrance exam was only 70 days away, making Seolgi deeply suspicious. Meanwhile, Choi Kyung received the results of her university interview. She had failed. She couldn't understand why, even though she had taken the performance-enhancing drugs. She started to doubt whether the pills she bought from the senior from the orphanage were fake. That same day, Yera received a message from an anonymous buyer requesting the same miracle pills. Out of curiosity, she secretly went to the meeting location to see who it was. Soon, Choi Kyung arrived to pick up the drugs, but Yera caught her in the act. Yera snatched the pills away, making Choi Kyung furious. In a fit of rage, Choi Kyung insulted Yera, calling her a bar girl. Shortly after, a photo of Yera at a bar began circulating on social media. Enraged, Yera confronted Choi Kyung, accusing her of leaking the picture. However, Choi Kyung denied it, saying she wasn't the type to expose people's secrets. Yera warned Choi Kyung that she would never be able to beat Yoo Jae-yi, advising her to stay quiet if she wanted to keep her own secrets safe. At that moment, Seul-gi arrived and asked what they were talking about, but neither of them revealed anything. Later that night, Seul-gi noticed dog fur on Choi Kyung's leg. Curious, she visited Choi Kyung's house, only to be shocked when she saw Yoo Jae-yi's dog there. When she questioned her, Choi Kyung revealed that Yoo Jae-yi had offered to secretly tutor her in exchange for adopting her dog. Piecing everything together, Seul-gi realized something was off. She rushed to the swimming pool where Yoo Jae-yi often went and found her standing on the diving board. Fearing Yoo Jae-yi might do something reckless, Seul-gi watched nervously. However, instead of jumping, Yoo Jae-yi calmly stepped down. Knowing that her father was always watching her, Yoo Jae-yi remained silent but wrote a message on the glass. Switch to Plan B. She had sensed that her father's scheme was much more complex than last year's exam theft. In addition to bribing a teacher, he had also arranged for a medical staff member to be involved. Seul-gi now realized that something far more sinister was at play. Aside from bribing the teacher, he also assigned a medical staff member to accompany them after learning about Plan A. Yoo Jae-yi told Seul-gi to retreat when she realized Plan A was unlikely to succeed. She wanted to handle the rest herself. The reason Yoo Jae-yi gave the dog to Choi Kyung was that she knew her father had placed a surveillance camera on its collar. The note referencing 92 days marked the expected outcome of the plan. Yoo Jae-yi didn't need the rigged exam questions. She could pass the university entrance exam on her own merits. However, those questions were crucial for incriminating her father. She also revealed that the medicine she had previously given Seul-gi was just vitamins. Hearing this, Seul-gi smiled happily. That day, Seul-gi unexpectedly met with her senior from the orphanage. She knew he was the one who had punctured her stepmother's tire. He admitted to doing it in exchange for a large sum of money promised by Dr. Tae-ju. Seul-gi then offered him an even bigger business opportunity, selling university exam questions to wealthy parents. That very night, the senior contacted potential buyers. Just from the deposit alone, he had already secured a bag full of cash. A day before the university entrance exam, the teacher bribed by Dr. Tae-ju obtained the test questions. While playing soccer, he faked an injury and was taken to the medical office of the exam board. Once inside, he handed the test questions to the medical staff, who had been planted there by Dr. Tae-ju. Under Dr. Tae-ju's orders, the medical staff changed the plan without the teacher knowing. She inflicted a real wound on his leg and instructed the exam board to call a hospital for pain relief medication. Shortly after, Dr. Tae-ju personally delivered the medication to the board. At that moment, the medical staff slipped the stolen exam questions into his pocket. On his way back, Dr. Tae-ju ordered the driver to speed up. However, the person in the car with him was actually the senior who had hijacked the vehicle earlier with Seul-gi. After driving him to a deserted area, the senior forced Dr. Tae-ju out of the car. Yoo Jae-yi then appeared, and the senior told Seul-gi to retrieve the stolen exam papers from Dr. Tae-ju's pocket. Yoo Jae-yi repeatedly urged Seul-gi to give her the test papers, but after some hesitation, Seul-gi shocked everyone by swallowing them instead. Yoo Jae-yi approached Seul-gi, apologized, and then knocked her unconscious. Seul-gi was immediately taken to Dr. Tae-ju's hospital. However, he refused to perform surgery to retrieve the papers. In the end, Yoo Jae-yi had to operate herself. After a while, she successfully retrieved the papers. Before Yoo Jae-yi could read them, the senior snatched them away. Outside, many parents were eagerly waiting for the stolen exam questions. Among them were Choi Kyung and Cho Ara. Inside, Dr. Tae-ju handed Yoo Jae-yi the real test papers. The ones the senior had taken were fake. Dr. Tae-ju had anticipated everything and prepared accordingly. The next day, the university entrance exam took place. Cho Ara and Choi Kyung were stunned to find that the exam questions they had bought were completely different from the real ones. Meanwhile, Yoo Jae-yi aced the exam effortlessly without needing any stolen questions. Seul-gi regained consciousness in the hospital, but by then, the exam was already over. She had missed it entirely. 3 weeks later, the exam results were announced. As expected, Yoo Jae-yi achieved a perfect score in all subjects. Reporters gathered to interview her. At that moment, Sol-gi walked into the classroom in a daze, packed her belongings, and left, shocking everyone. That night, Yoo Jae-yi visited a hidden house where her sister Jenna was being held. She told Jenna she was about to go to kindergarten. She gently washed Jenna's face, just as Jenna had done for her when they were younger. Then, she dressed Jenna in a life jacket and a beanie. Yoo Jae-yi had set up a camera to live stream what was about to happen. She hugged her sister tightly and then jumped into the deep river with her. At that same moment, Dr. Tae-ju was being interviewed on television. The audience was stunned as Yoo Jae-yi's live stream played on screen. News stations broadcasted live coverage of her jumping into the river. Rescue teams searched throughout the night. By dawn, they managed to retrieve one person, Jenna. However, Yoo Jae-yi was nowhere to be found. Standing on the riverbank, Seul-gi was devastated, crying uncontrollably and calling out Yoo Jae-yi's name in despair. She regretted not discovering Yoo Jae-yi's secret plan sooner. Before jumping, Yoo Jae-yi had secretly placed a camera in the operating room, capturing everything. This footage led to Dr. Tae-ju being investigated for stealing university entrance exam questions over the past 2 years. Additionally, he was suspected of eliminating Professor Do Hyuk. He was arrested for questioning. Reporters bombarded him with questions, but he only said one thing: "I will find my daughter, no matter what." 6 months passed. Reporters and journalists still sought Sol-gi for interviews, but she remained in hiding. Meanwhile, the police claimed to have found Yoo Jae-yi's body, but Dr. Tae-ju refused to believe it was his daughter.
Yera had now turned to an honest way of making a living, working at a restaurant while considering her future. Choi Kyung had found her true calling and enrolled in law school. She was so focused on her studies that she had no interest in dating, despite her past as a professional pickpocket. As for Dr. Tae-ju, he was released due to a lack of sufficient evidence. Every day, rain or shine, he stood in front of Sol-gi's house, desperate to see her and learn whether Yoo Jae-yi was still alive. Another 6 months passed. Sol-gi diligently studied for the upcoming university entrance exam while constantly thinking about Yoo Jae-yi. The day before the exam, Sol-gi heard the doorbell ring. When she opened the door, she found a package. Inside was a new pair of shoes, a keychain she had once gifted Yoo Jae-yi, and a photograph of a distant beach. Smiling at these items, Sol-gi realized that Yoo Jae-yi was still alive. She was somewhere by the sea, waiting for Sol-gi to find her.